Most people inherit money. Some inherit memories. But Ethan inherited something no one in his family even knew existed. It wasn't hidden inside a bank. It wasn't locked inside a safe. It had been waiting for years, inside a dusty attic that nobody had entered, since his grandfather passed away, hidden beneath old photographs. Broken clocks and forgotten letters was a small leather notebook. It looked ordinary, old, worn out, but the moment Ethan picked it up, something felt different, almost as if someone had been waiting for him to find it. As he opened the first page, his heartbeat slowed. Only one sentence had been written. If you're reading this, your life is about to change. Ethan froze. Who wrote this? And how could they possibly know? He would find it? For a long moment, Ethan simply stared at the notebook. His grandfather had never mentioned it, not once. As a child, his grandfather always told stories about kindness, discipline, and patience, but never about this notebook, which made Ethan wonder, why had it been hidden away instead of passed down? Curiosity finally won. He turned the page. There were no maps, no hidden treasure, no list of money or property. Instead, there was a single challenge, written neatly across the page. Tomorrow morning, make your bed. Ethan blinked. That was it? It sounded ridiculous. How could making a bed change anyone's life? He almost laughed, almost closed the notebook forever. But before going to sleep, he looked at the old leather cover one more time and quietly whispered, "Fine, I'll try." The next morning, Ethan woke up earlier than usual. For a moment, he thought about ignoring the notebook completely. It felt silly. How could something as ordinary as making a bed possibly change a person's life? Still, the sentence from the first page echoed inside his mind. Your life is about to change. With a quiet sigh, he decided to give it one chance. He straightened the blanket, smoothed the pillows, stepped back, and looked at the neatly made bed. No magical feeling, no sudden confidence. No dramatic music, just a clean bed. Ethan couldn't help smiling to himself. Maybe Grandpa was playing one last joke on me. Before leaving for work, Ethan opened the notebook again. The next page held another short sentence. Come back tomorrow. That was all. No explanation. No reason. Just 3 simple words. For the first time, Ethan wasn't just curious. He genuinely wanted to know what would be written on the next page. The next morning, Ethan woke up before his alarm. Not because he had suddenly become disciplined, but because he couldn't stop thinking about the notebook. He made his bed again, walked quietly into the kitchen, and opened the next page. This time the message was slightly longer. Drink a glass of water before you touch your phone. Ethan looked at his phone, then back at the notebook. It felt strange, almost like someone knew exactly how he lived. Normally, the first thing Ethan reached for every morning was his phone. Messages, news, social media, an endless stream of distractions. But today, he picked up a glass of water instead. It felt like such a tiny decision, yet somehow, the entire morning felt calmer. For the first time in months, his mind wasn't rushing. Over the next few days, the notebook kept giving him small challenges. Take a short walk, read 10 pages, write one grateful thought. Nothing looked impressive, nothing looked life-changing. Yet every evening, Ethan found himself looking forward to turning the next page. Without realizing it, the notebook had already changed one thing. It had made him curious about becoming better. Weeks quietly slipped by. Every morning, Ethan made his bed. He drank water before checking his phone. He walked, read, and wrote in the notebook. But his life looked exactly the same. There were still unpaid bills on the table. His inbox was still filled with rejection emails. And every evening, he found himself asking the same question. Is any of this actually working? That night, he looked into the mirror. He didn't see a stronger man. He didn't see a more successful man. He saw the same person. Same face, same problems. Same ordinary life. For the first time, he wondered if the notebook had been wrong. All along. Maybe his grandfather had simply written down random advice. Maybe there was no secret after all. He closed the notebook, turned off the light, and whispered to himself, Tomorrow, I'm done. He had followed every challenge, done everything it asked, yet nothing had changed. Or at least, that's what he believed. He had no idea that the biggest change had already begun. Morning arrived, but Ethan didn't feel like getting out of bed. For weeks, he had trusted every word inside the notebook. He had completed every challenge, every small habit, every simple instruction, yet his life still felt painfully ordinary. He reached toward the notebook, then stopped. Maybe today, I should just leave it closed. For several long seconds, he simply stared at it. Then, almost without thinking, he opened it one last time. As he turned another page, something unexpected happened. A folded letter, hidden deep inside the notebook, slipped onto the floor. Ethan froze. He was certain it hadn't been there before. With trembling hands, he picked it up. The paper was old, its edges worn with time. Across the front, only 4 words had been written. Read this last. Inside the letter, his grandfather had written, "If you're reading this, it means you're disappointed. You're probably wondering why nothing has changed. But you've been looking for changes around you when you should have been looking inside yourself." Ethan slowly lowered the letter. For the first time, he wasn't thinking about rejection emails, or money, or success. He was thinking about the person he had quietly become. And in that moment, everything finally made sense. That morning, Ethan stood in front of the mirror again. The same mirror he had looked into only days before. His face hadn't changed. His clothes were the same. The room was the same, but something felt different. For the first time in years, he wasn't ashamed of the man staring back at him. He realized confidence hadn't appeared overnight. It had been quietly growing. Every single time he kept a promise to himself. A few days later, he applied for another job. Not because he suddenly believed he couldn't fail, but because he was no longer afraid of trying again. Rejection no longer defined him. It was simply part of the journey. For the first time, he walked into an interview without pretending to be someone else. He simply showed up as the person he had been slowly becoming. One quiet afternoon, his phone finally rang. It wasn't a miracle. It wasn't luck. It was an opportunity he would have been too afraid to chase just a few months earlier. As Ethan looked down at the screen, he smiled. Not because he had finally received good news, but because he knew the real victory had happened long before that phone call ever came. The job was simply the result of the man he had already become. That evening, Ethan returned home carrying something far more valuable than a job offer. He carried peace for months. The notebook had guided him 1 page at a time. Now, only a few pages remained. He wondered if there would be another challenge, another habit, another lesson. He slowly turned the page, knowing this journey was almost over. But he wasn't ready for what he was about to read. The final page wasn't a challenge. It wasn't another habit. Instead, his grandfather had written one last message. "If you've reached this page, then you already know the secret." This notebook never had the power to change your life. It simply gave you a reason to change yourself. Ethan read those words again and again. Each sentence felt heavier than the last. A single tear rolled down Ethan's face, not because he was sad, but because he finally understood. The notebook had never contained magic. The words hadn't created discipline. The pages hadn't built confidence. Every morning he chose consistency. Every evening he refused to quit. He had been quietly rebuilding himself, and that realization was worth more than anything money could ever buy. Years passed. Life slowly moved forward. Ethan built a career, made new memories, and found a quiet happiness he had spent years searching for. But no matter how successful life became, he never forgot the notebook. One peaceful evening, he climbed back into the old attic. The same dusty room, the same wooden chest. With gentle hands, he placed the notebook exactly where he had found it years before. Before closing the notebook, Ethan slipped one more note inside. It wasn't a long letter. It wasn't a complicated lesson. It simply said, Don't stop after the first page. He smiled because he knew. Most people quit before life has a chance to change them. Sometimes, many years later, another young man climbed into the same forgotten attic. He wasn't searching for treasure. He wasn't searching for answers. He was simply trying to escape a life that no longer made sense. Hidden beneath old photographs, his hand touched an old leather notebook. He slowly opened the first page. If you're reading this, your life is about to change. And somewhere, Ethan smiled, because the greatest gifts are never meant to be kept. They're meant to be passed on.